Going on, everyone? Welcome back. It is Tuesday night. Man. And we're back talking about Madeline Soto. Just quick reminder, if you want to get my attention in the chat, just stick GF in your comment. That will let me have a little filter to be able to see things. Guys, today was a really good day. I got so much rest today. It was awesome. I woke up this morning, I checked in at work, and my editor was like, "Hey, good job on all the work that you've done on the trial. We got good commentary from the sheriff, from the DA's office. Thanks for doing that. Why don't you take the rest of the day off?" And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds great." So that is what I did. It was terrific. And so I feel rested up and ready to go. And beyond that, this is maybe a little too much information, but beyond that, my wife and I are within a couple of weeks of celebrating 3 weeks of celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary. And thanks to her really hard work and saving and organizing and all that stuff, we got some new furniture delivered today as an early anniversary gift. So it's pretty rad. Today was a great day. Okay. We're talking about Maddie here. We are in part 2 of listening to the police recording of her dad, a man named Tyler Wallace. This little picture is just heartbreaking to me. I'm really sorry. I mean, look at that little 3 or 4 year old little girl with her whole future ahead of her, the little flowers in her hair, the ballerina, the everything. She was too cute, like her shirt says. Anyway, Madeline, just to catch you up if you're new here, she was last seen on February 25th of this year. She was reported missing on February 26th. Shortly thereafter, her mom's on-again, off-again boyfriend, a man named Stephan Sterns, was arrested first for SA of Madeline and also for CSAM materials, possessing those materials. And later, after her body was discovered, he was charged in her murder. So the recording that we're listening to now, today, that we're going to keep listening to, if you haven't heard the first part, you can listen to yesterday's live stream. He already knows, Mr. Wallace already knows that his daughter has been murdered. This is a picture of Maddie when she's a little bit older with Mr. Wallace and his wife Tatiana. Anyway, we're gonna keep listening to this. Let's see what we have. We've got a couple of comments in here. Let me see what we have. PJ says 3 cheers for day off. Oh man, I needed it so bad. It felt so good to have a day off. Yeah, November 19th is our anniversary. It'll be 25 years, and I can't believe it's gone that fast. It's been amazing. Gina, great job on the first 25. Big Matt and I just clicked 29. Awesome for you guys. And Joanne Boduin, I don't know, said good for you. So I'm very, very glad. Thank you very much. It was a great day, and I was rested up, so we're going to be able to. I'm not dying. Let me just put it that way. I'm not dying like I have been over the last couple of days. All right, let's go ahead and begin or continue with this recording. We're about 19 minutes and 50 seconds in. I've just backed up. He's just stated that he doesn't know if Jenn Soto is Madeline's mom. He does not know if Jenn had anything to do with it, and said that if she was a victim like he was and like Maddie was, then he's good to leave them alone and never talk to him ever again and be done with it. But he says, I swear that if she had anything to do with it, I will use all the legal remedies that I have. So that's where we left off, and here is where we will pick up.
Okay. I just need a second. I'm sorry. I'm ramping up. I just need a second.
I just want to make sure you guys can hear everything.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Do you think it was normal for Jennifer to call you when she went missing? Or did that seem kind of out of the blue because you guys haven't had much communication?
Jennifer almost never tells me anything. I think the only reason she told me is because she realized that I was going to find out eventually.
Okay.
But I can't confirm or deny that. That's just me speculating.
Okay. Has she told you in the past what any issues that Maddie may have had or has not had, like parenting stuff? Or
about 2 years ago when I was in prison is when I heard that Maddie had received a diagnosis for autism, which is something that I always thought that maybe I dealt with, autistic traits that I have. And the short version of the story here is I believe my daughter did not have autism, and I believe I don't have autism. I believe we have autistic traits that are symptoms of PTSD.
So this is a redaction here.
And realizing that it wasn't a genetic autistic trait that I passed on to Maddie, it was probably her having similar developmental conditions that I had as a child that I was recognizing in her. And that's real fucking hard to deal with, man.
okay.
I wish I had seen the signs, but I just didn't. I was just trying to get a relationship with Maddie on the back end. I've been so patient waiting to have my turn with my little girl. And then this shit happens and I just don't know what to think. I'm just processing. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do.
You know, he went for the first about 20 minutes of this interview without really even breaking anything. In fact, one of the things that we said yesterday is kind of feels weird. Maybe he's a little extra military or something like that. He said that he spent time in prison 2 years ago. That was part of the recording earlier. It was a military issue, apparently. But now he's actually breaking up a little bit, which is actually, for me, it's refreshing that somebody would, right? And I'm not saying that there aren't other people in Maddie's life that haven't. Just, you know, watching Jenn and watching Stephan not break down has been tiring.
All right. Have you ever met Jennifer's boyfriend, Stephan?
I don't think so. I think I've only ever seen pictures of him on Instagram. I'm trying to remember that. I didn't remember when Stephan came into Jennifer's life, but I've done some research on Reddit, and according to a local post that I found, it looks like he may have entered her life around 2018, which I would have still been in Kansas at that time. I do remember talking to Jennifer about Stephan and being like, hey, I'm low-key uncomfortable with you just bringing a guy around my kid, but that was one of those things where it's like I didn't really feel like I had a choice. I didn't really feel like I had a say. Jennifer always seemed pretty comfortable with Stephan. I knew he was a biomechanical engineer from what Jennifer told me, which always weirded me out on what the fuck would a biomechanical engineer want with Jennifer. Like, I'm not saying she's a terrible person, but I just didn't see what traits of her would attract somebody like that. And so I do...
A biomechanical engineer. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's the first time I've heard that Stephan is anything other than a kind of a failure to launch, head trauma in childhood, kind of a creep. I haven't heard anything about engineering or biomechanics with Stephan Sterns being part of the conversation.
I have a working theory with what I think happened. I am aware that this is all speculation, but if you'd like to hear that, I will share with you what I suspect may have happened.
I mean, of course, that would be, according to him, it would be Jenn saying that that's what he was, right?
Okay. What do you think happened?
So the only thing that makes sense to me at this point is I've heard stories that possibly Stephan had stabbed somebody when he was 14 and that his dad had moved him across country. I've heard an article that maybe a former roommate had seen on Stephan's computer and that Stephan's mother had paid off the roommate. I don't know the veracity of those things, but those are what got me thinking on the mindset of, okay, so if his family moved him to avoid legal consequences for deviant behavior in the past, and he claims he worked at Disney, which I know Jennifer has always been around Disney, and so I'm thinking to myself, what would a predator do to find access to a child? Maybe they would go get a job at some place like Disney where there's high access passively to children and just observe, and then when he located a child that was of his taste, maybe he saw that Maddie was approaching Jennifer regularly, introduced himself. It has always been my opinion that Jennifer has not been as attentive of a mother as I would like. I feel like my daughter got passed around Jennifer's family for things like daycare quite often, and that whenever I wanted to get into contact with Maddie, it was difficult because I never knew when she was going to be home or available. And I think that maybe Stephan saw that as a predator and saw that that was a pretty easy environment to insert himself into their life. I then suspect he set up a and at what point I become curious watching shows like Dexter or things like that is, okay, what fucked up their schedule then? How did he go from this patient calculating monster who did all of these things to being emotionally incompetent and disposing of a body off the side of a fucking road? I just don't understand what changed their behavior. And I say there because I started watching. It took me a couple of days to have the emotional space, but I started watching interviews of them when they were reaching out to the news outlets. Jennifer told me they were going to reach out to the news outlets when Maddie was missing, so I knew she had done that, but I just hadn't watched the interviews. And when I watched the interviews, Stephan is in a couple of them, and I was watching his body language, but then because I was doing that and some YouTube videos about body language came out, I was looking at Jennifer's body language, and it's like, I saw very strong emotions in her, but they seemed like anxiety, like not grief. She was waiting at home while our daughter was still missing. Like that, I literally can't wrap my brain around that. It doesn't.
See, exactly. And this is making me feel better about the way I felt. You guys know that in the beginning I kind of waffled back and forth. Like, was Jenn involved? Was she not involved? But Mr. Wallace points out these interviews that they did with the local media there in the greater Orlando area. Yeah, she looked emotional, but she looked more like guilty and not wanting to get caught. He describes it as her looking anxious. Yeah, all of that is true. And pointing out that Jenn didn't go look for her. He drove from Houston to Kissimmee and started like trying to figure out how to look for his daughter. And Maddie's own mother wouldn't even do that, right? She would take her medicine. She'd fall asleep in a hotel room paid for by Stephan's dad. It's just weird all the way around. That made me feel better that he's like, yeah, I'm seeing these signals. I think that she's involved.
It makes sense to me. And so what I suspect happened is something that they couldn't avoid, something like maybe or something, and they realized like, oh fuck, we can't get an abortion, we can't hide this. Maybe they did something. I don't know if Jennifer was involved or wasn't. Maybe Stephan did all this on his own and she just found out. That's where my head is at, and that's why I was like, you know what, I think I want to set up separate updates with the police department, because I just don't know. I just don't like the fact that everything I know about my daughter has been filtered through that family to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, that's my piece.
That's okay. Have you, when you and Jennifer were together, was she on any kind of medication or anything like that, or do you know if she's been on any medication since?
She was never open with me when we were together. I do know that since we dated, she's been diagnosed with bipolar. I don't know what medication she's currently on, but I know that she's been on medications as hardcore as lithium in the past.
Okay. What about Maddie?
I don't remember the names of the medications, but I was informed when Maddie came to visit me that she was on antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication. Do you know the names of them?
Yes, hydroxyzine was one of them. She was.
Sorry, let me just pause this. This is a perfect illustration. Like, yeah, he's like, I know she was on medications and it was for this, that, and the other, and then goes to his wife, do you know what it is? Yes. Yes, I do. And by the way, I have to give props to Tatiana here, right? Because in the beginning of the interview, the police are like, hey, you really aren't her biological parent, so we really just want to talk to Tyler. And it didn't seem like she had any problem with that. I know that there were a couple of comments yesterday about him having a hard time talking about things in front of her. There are people in my life, though. Actually, this is not a secret. Let me give you an example. My little sister found out after she married my brother-in-law that he had a child. Well, they both found out that he had a child. I don't remember the details, but anyway, that he had a child from a relationship before. It was in a different country, and it was kind of weird. But anyway, you can talk to Maki about that whole thing in front of my sister. My sister is like emotionally stable, strong, stout, right? And so you're able to have those conversations. I don't think that Tyler has any problem answering the police's question in front of his wife, Tatiana. Now, it was a little different situation than like my sister and my brother-in-law, right? I mean, Tatiana was his girlfriend when he had what he called an encounter with Jenn that ended up in Jenn being pregnant. So there might be a little sensitivity there, but I still think that having Tatiana there is rad. Like, she was on medication for anxiety. Do you remember what it's called? Boom, hydroxyzine. Yes, right. She hopped in there as soon as she was asked that, and I thought that was pretty awesome.
I didn't feel comfortable giving because I take hydroxyzine to go to sleep, and I only and so I was only one while she was here with us visiting. The other one was Miralax, so she could go to the restroom regularly.
Okay. Now, when you were giving her the medication to help her sleep, did she have a prescription bottle with her?
Yes, there's a prescription bottle. And
on the prescription, did it say...
These are redactions. I didn't do
So that's what the doctor prescribed her?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Tyler, did you have any discussions with Jennifer about medicine that Maddie was taking?
Never.
Okay.
Did I remember? I don't think Jennifer ever really told me about their visits. It was just that when I was responsible for Maddie, she would rattle off a list of what I was responsible to make sure she got.
Okay. And when Maddie come to visit you, what were the sleeping arrangements like?
Maddie slept in the bed with Topsy. I wanted to sleep with them and kind of make a little Maddie sandwich, and she was not very keen on that idea, so she made sure that I slept on the couch. Sometimes we'd cuddle, but that was the sleeping arrangements. Is usually she'd sleep in the bedroom with Topsy, and I'd sleep on the couch.
Okay, whose idea was it to have what you referred to as like the Maddie sandwich? Who wasn't uncomfortable with it, Tatiana or Maddie?
I believe it was Maddie who was uncomfortable with it. She didn't straight up say, I don't want to cuddle, but she would cuddle with me when it was just me and her, and I believe she'd cuddle with you when it was just you and her, but when we were together, she would become a little bit more shy, is the word I would use.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, when she would sleep at night, me having...
I don't know the answer to that question, 4x4 Explorers. That's really interesting, the whole idea of the Maddie sandwich cuddle thing, right? That Maddie wasn't comfortable with that, because that is exactly the opposite of the description that we get out of Sterns and Jenn Soto.
Children myself, sometimes children, they kind of flop all over the place when they're sleeping. Did you notice anything like that with Maddie?
Yes, I will say I also sleep like that, and Tati had commented on how Maddie sleeps just like me. I very much thrash a lot, and Maddie was a kicker and a mover and a thrasher.
Okay, did it seem like she got good night's sleep, or she was up and down?
Once I gave her the medicine, she was fine. Like, she would go to sleep.
Without the medication, she was more like me, though, where insomnia would set in, and in the evening, our emotions would... She literally told me one night, I'm so sorry, my medication is wearing off. I'm having big mood swings. They're crazy.
And so, yes, I'd wake up with, like, an elbow in my face, but to get her up in the morning was the issue, because she never wanted to get up on, like, the first shake, or not even the second, so I just chalked it up to her being more like Tyler, because it takes him a while to get up in the morning. Mm-hmm. But
no, you think it was the medication?
Yeah.
All right. Do you know? You may not know this. Do you know if Jennifer was taking that same type of medicine?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Did she talk about her relationship with Jenn and her relationship with Stephan?
I asked her if her mother and Stephen were still together, and she says no, they're not together. She, loved her mom, because every time I would make a little bit of a snarky comment, she would correct me and say everybody's beautiful in their own way. And we never really talked about Stephen when she was around, just to say that they weren't together.
How was her demeanor when she answered that?
It was well, they're not together, whatever. Just...
Would you call that dismissive?
Dismissive, yeah.
Okay, so upset or angry, or just kind of how would you...
Emotional reaction. Did she seem like she was uncomfortable? Did she seem how did she seem to you?
She just seemed like she was just casually talking to me. It wasn't like a angry emotion or anything like that.
Kind of the problem is I would ask surface level questions on if she was happy, but she always answered pretty vaguely, and so I just truly never knew anything was wrong. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Keep talking. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
So she was just kind of just dismissive, we were just talking oh yeah, they're not together anymore, and I'm okay.
I know hindsight is 20/20, and you guys kind of only had a couple interactions with her yearly. But did you see any change in her personality over the last couple years? Do you anything that stands out?
I felt like the last time we met in October was the only time we ever really saw each other, is how I would describe it. When I'm being metaphorical when I say I saw her for the first time and she saw me for the first time, and we really felt like we connected. Other than that, it's always been she hasn't felt I'm sorry, this is just father talk, but it's I've been watching her grow, but she hasn't felt like a whole person with her own questions and curiosity and motivations until the last time I saw her. She seemed more an adult than a child, and it's not that it bothered me, it's just that it made me curious on what caused the sudden change in growth. She went from being a silly little girl to being what I would describe as a Euphoria character, which Euphoria is a show all about kids who are dealing with crazy levels of trauma.
Mm-hmm. You're referring to the show with...
I think her name is Zendaya.
Zendaya, yes, okay.
And, I watched that show recently with my wife, and then when my daughter came to this, I couldn't stop thinking about that show. Just because I don't know how to explain it. These young girls have this 1,000-mile look on their face that I would expect out of Vietnam veterans, not fucking little girls.
I don't know, Jersey Red. That's been asked a couple times. I don't know the answer to that question. If somebody else does, let us know.
I'm not saying that there wasn't trauma there. I'm saying as a man who has experienced trauma, that's what confuses me, is how so many young girls have that look in their eyes of
How often did you have contact with Maddie prior to October?
How often? It was infrequent, unfortunately. I struggle with ADHD, and so did Maddie. And what that looks like for us is really bad time blindness and realizing you haven't talked to people for months and then reaching out awkwardly and trying to.
I would text her.
How often?
I've always struggled with regular communication, and earlier in Maddie's life, Jennifer used to give me really big issues about that. And then I thought Jennifer was growing as a person because I couldn't tell you when, but sometime halfway through Maddie's life, Jennifer just became a lot less judgmental and mean about it. She was just like, hey, I get it. You have stuff going on. We have stuff going on. And so I felt like that was us getting close. Like, I felt like that was Jennifer understanding us more at the time, but now I'm curious.
All right, but going back to, you say it's infrequent on how many times you spoke with Maddie. So are we talking once a month?
Some weeks we would talk every day just because our schedules allowed us, and then sometimes we would go, I think, a couple of months without really interacting in any way.
Okay.
And that was pretty typical of our relationship. Just very high intensity communication for a time, and then kind of dormancy.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, so I will do my best to keep you abreast of this investigation. Whatever information I share with Jennifer, I will share with you. This is a pretty high-profile case, as you can tell by it's made national news and stuff like that. So the stuff that we release is going to be very minimal. And it's not to say anything against you and or Jennifer. It's just...
That is pretty funny. I mean, sorry, it's Florida. They've released a lot, and because of the national attention, and I think honestly because of the attention on YouTube from people like Plunder and Gazella and a couple of others, myself included, who've put in request after request after request, and have spent a lot of money getting our hands on some of these documents and recordings and so forth. I think maybe that is why so much is out. But it is kind of funny that no, this is high profile. We probably won't put very much out. No, there's more out on this case than almost any other case right now.
When we do these types of investigations, we keep a lot of stuff close-knit just because you have... if you want to quote-unquote armchair quarterbacks that look into these things, then we don't need that happening. So,
acknowledged. That's exactly why I stopped coming up with my own scenarios and wanted to reach out to you, as I realized I was myself joining in on the armchair quarterbacking, and that is very much not what we want to do in this situation.
Yeah. So you may hear from me on a daily basis, or you may hear from it may be a few days or a week or so before I contact you again, okay?
Completely understood, sir. Thank you.
All right. Do you have any questions for us that we might be able to answer for you?
Give me a minute to think. I'm sorry. You may ask whatever you have.
Would it be possible if we could reach out to a victim service advocate?
Yes, I will take your number down, and I will have our victim advocate reach out to you. Okay,
because the press is kind of...
Let me talk about that real quick. The victim's advocate here, at least in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, I think the police agencies, the investigating agencies, have them as well. But in the district attorney's offices, there will be a victim's advocate where they kind of go through with the family members through the entire kind of system, the process, let's say. They will explain the process very thoroughly, very calmly, and they will work with the family members. And I know a couple of victim advocates here in Western Pennsylvania, and both of the people that are in my mind that are working in those positions are very patient, very empathetic kinds of people, and they work with the families of people like Maddie whose lives have been taken, and they do it in a way that is very caring. So I'm so glad that Tatiana asked for that, because otherwise they would be badgering the detectives and the investigators. And really, that advocate is probably the best way to go about that anyway. So that is encouraging that she was asking for that.
Getting to the point where they're contacting us every day.
So my question to you is, I was, until recently, physically in Orlando. I was originally going to try to make myself physically available to you guys, but frankly, the emotional weight was tearing up my friends' lives, too. This is really heavy shit, and I'm just trying to take care of my family and myself. So my question to you is, do we need to be ready to come down there at some time, or are we trying to kind of make our way back to Texas?
I'm going to pause here for a second. I keep getting this comment from different people. Yeah, I understand she has a South African accent, and she says, Gazala, I'm sorry. And when I talk to her, I'm friendly with her. She's perfectly fine with me pronouncing it the English way. Okay?
At this point, I don't know what I should be doing in this case.
Yeah, you can go back to Texas. If we need you, or if we need to become face-to-face with you to gather more information or something like that, we will make a trip out to see you.
Okay, outstanding. In the meantime, would it be acceptable behavior if I were to, say, travel to visit my parents in Kansas, or is that something you would advise against at this time?
No, absolutely.
My parents haven't been able to come down to Florida to grieve with us.
Good
so
question.
That was kind of my, not this week, but in a month I intend to visit my parents in Kansas. Should that be acceptable?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
As for the press, I know you said the press has been contacting you. Once again, you're adults. I can't tell you what or what not to do. Only thing I can do.
Anybody at this point in time, we'll talk with victims advocates and legal representation to figure out if that's in the case's best interest at any point. But I have no horse in this race. I'm content to just stay off of the pages and grieve in private.
Okay, so what I would do though is any press that reaches out to you or something like that, if you do not want to talk to them, you can always defer them to our police department. And our public information officer will handle all those requests.
I appreciate that. I will direct any further people that reach out through you guys.
Okay.
Is there a number, or in fact, if I was going to, what should I say when I'm directing them? Is there a number or an email I should give them?
Just tell them no comment. You can contact the Kissimmee Police Department. That's all you got to say.
No comment. Let's contact Kissimmee Police Department. Thank you so much.
You got it. And I will be in touch with you, like I said, in the next few days. I'll probably reach back out to you.
Outstanding. I appreciate that.
All right. Yes, sir. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. You too.
And that is the end of the recording. It's got like 5 seconds of just silence.
Conclude this interview at 2:42 p.m.
There we go. That is the end of it. And Molly, that's a great comment to kind of end the recording on. Yeah, it does sound like he's in pain, like he's grieving. And that is something that I have never heard in Jenn. You guys can go back and watch the videos on my channel of Jenn being interviewed in that kind of like living room style police interview room. And the officer points it out, the detective points it out. She just seems more concerned with Stephan than she seems concerned with her daughter. And at that time, her daughter was still missing. Her body hadn't been found. So yeah, I agree with you 100%, Molly. Trad Mom says, who else cannot wait for this trial for some justice? Yeah, I think it's going to be a couple of years, but but hopefully if it goes to trial, they'll have a strong case against him. Lauren says, it was Tatiana putting up the barriers and Tyler has no backbone, creating a perfect entree. I don't... Sorry, guys. I've got a cough here that I think I inhaled something dry. I didn't catch that at all. Like I didn't pick up on that at all. I feel like it's an imperfect situation. And the way I described it yesterday was that I honestly believe that every child should be born into a nuclear family with parents that love each other and love the child. I'm a very traditional person that way. I think it's in the child's best interest. However, I also know that it's not always the way things go. It just isn't the way things go sometimes. And it did seem to me like Mr. Wallace and his wife Tatiana did the best that they could, but it was imperfect. We also don't know kind of the ins and outs of the kind of relationship between him and Jenn as co-parents. Sometimes those are very difficult to navigate. And I'm not defending him either. I'm just saying that I really don't know. Yeah, that's my idea. Alana asks, why do you think Jenn has not been charged with anything, even accessory to child SA? I think there's just still gathering evidence, and they're making a very, very strong case. I think that she will be charged. Abigail's the name. Kevin, I can't help but feel so terrible for Maddie. Maybe they were the best parents they could be, but it was such a crappy job. So much negligence. She deserved to be loved and protected. Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all, Abigail. I've expressed here on I can take these off. I've expressed here on the channel multiple times that I feel like I just won the family lottery, right? I was born into a family with parents that were stable and loved one another and loved and defended us kids, provided for us pretty darn well. They had their struggles, but they were honest, loving, good people. They are. I'm talking about this in the past tense. My parents are still with us. But yeah, I think that Maddie was just, she didn't win that lottery, and was born into a situation that was way less than ideal. Now, having said that, I do think her grandparents loved her, and I think that her aunts and uncles all loved her, and they did get that. But coming from again, I don't want to give away too much here, but I've got a cousin that I consider my brother. In a lot of ways, he was raised for a good portion of his life by my parents, and for a good portion of his life by my grandparents. And I'm very sorry that he had to kind of be born into a situation that he was in. Having said that, though, I mean, I hear my dad say things like this all the time. My dad, his dad died when he was 7 years old, and he had to deal with the whole having a childhood without a father. And then my grandmother remarried a man who I always knew as my grandfather, and he was a good grandpa, but my dad had problems with him. He was not the best stepdad, let's say, from my dad's perspective, let's be fair. So, I mean, but my dad, having had that kind of childhood, what we would call trauma now, his generation would just say that's life, right? But he would tell people like my cousin, you're not the only one. You're not the first. You definitely won't be the last that has a crappy childhood. You still have to make the most of it. Unfortunately, with Madeline, she wasn't given that opportunity. Man, it wasn't that she didn't win the family lottery. It's that she was placed into an environment where she just was the victim of sustained and repeated abuse for, 5/13 of her life, almost a little over a third of her life. And ultimately her life was taken. So I'm just saying, I think that people do the best they can. And poor Maddie paid the price with people that just, their best wasn't all that good. Let's see what else you guys are saying. Veronica, I read somewhere or heard Yolanda, the grandma, paid a lot of money to a lawyer and kept him far from Jenn. Yeah, it's possible that they just did not get along, right? Gavin, has Jenn just been hiding out since everything has come out? It does seem that way. And honestly, I mean, I know that she got a lawyer, which I think that was probably smart of her to do that. And it is wise of her to not say anything anymore. She's probably getting that advice from her attorney, and that's good advice. I mean, for us, we would much rather have more stuff to chew on here, right? But it's probably good advice for her. Joanne says, I made a comment last week that this needs to go to court, all the while thinking I want to hear from Jenn. Yeah, I think a lot of us want it to go to court so that we can hear more, right? Aaron says, Gavin, I give this guy a lot of credit for being frank about his relationship or lack thereof. I've seen more Tyler type fathers in my life than I have Gavin type fathers, and there's always more to the story. Yeah, and we do need to be willing to extend grace as much as we possibly can if we expect grace to be extended to us, right? So I personally think Mr. Wallace probably did the best he could with the life tools that he had. Unfortunately, and he's not to blame on this at all. Stephan Sterns is to blame, and I think Jenn Soto is to blame. But Maddie just didn't have a safe haven. I think maybe over time, Tyler and Tatiana could have been that safe haven if Maddie would have been given that chance. And I have to say, like, in my YouTube journey, I have become acquainted with and even friendly with people that have experienced really, really difficult challenges in their lives, whether that's abuse or drug addiction or all sort, like there's a myriad of things, right? Who over time have triumphed. Like, I think of if you go back and you look at my coverage of Amanda Winkowski, she was addicted to heroin and other pills, other drugs, and so forth. She had turned to sex work in order to feed that addiction. And along with her sister Danielle did all the crime stuff. You know, she was also addicted. She did all the theft and all the stuff that goes along with trying to feed that addiction. And these many years later, Amanda was killed in 2008. These many years later, Danielle is somebody that's really easy to admire. And had Amanda been given that time and that chance, she also had the opportunity to turn into somebody that's really admirable. I mean, she was really admirable in a lot of ways anyway, but she really could have blossomed like her sister. And I have no reason to believe that Madeline wouldn't have either. She would have had a lot of trauma to work through. Hopefully she would have had professional help along the way, but she could have overcome this had she been given the time. But no, according to police, this guy snatched that away from her. And I don't like to look at him all that much. So I'm just going to go back to let's keep Maddie up here. SD. And by the way, thank you for that compliment, Aaron. I have done my best as a dad. It's been one of my, I think my favorite thing that has ever happened to me is that I met and married Kimberly. The next favorite thing that ever happened to me was our children. It's pretty amazing. And it is the favorite thing that happened to us, is having children. So thank you for that compliment. SD. Tyler had made mention that Jenn was a manipulative person in the past and mentioned he didn't want to enable Jenn in the past. Yeah, so that seems like a signal a little bit that he had issues with her. That's like if he fought it, then she would turn back into that manipulative person. Maybe he was walking on eggshells a little bit. LB, Gavin, on the 1st of March, she didn't have any siblings other than Stephen Young's ex-husband's daughter, considered a sibling, but then we know Jenn lies. Yeah. So, I mean, in the comments, it does seem like Tyler and Tatiana have a couple kiddos. Stephen, who we're going to be listening to his recorded interview starting tomorrow, he did have a daughter and they lived in that townhouse all together. And one of the reasons that led to the divorce was he wanted to get his daughter out of that situation. Great comment, LB. Gavin, Trad Mom, yes, traditionalists right here too. It's not always perfect, but we have a great foundation and support system. We need God back in our country. And I'm a religious person, a practicing religious person as well, and I share your belief. But even if you aren't a religious person, I think that I think that having a traditional set of values and ethics to guide you as you build your family is always a good thing. Jersey Red, I haven't heard if he paid child support. I have not either. King Tima, respectfully, they didn't do the best they could do. So I appreciate comments like this where you disagree with me. Especially when they come across respectfully. Thank you for that. I just think that I'm willing to allow a little grace to fill in the gaps that I don't know. How do I say this? I often find that the people in my life where I feel like they could do more, really what I'm doing is I'm projecting and I'm saying I could do more or we could do more, and not allowing them that, I'm sorry to keep repeating the word, but not allowing them that grace that maybe they can't. So again, respectfully, King Tima B, and I appreciate your comment. I'm just gonna give him a little grace on that. Women's Warrior, Gavin, I agree. Both parents play specific parts in a child life to grow well-adjusted adults. However, even with the best intentions, it doesn't work out. That is true. Absolutely. I raised 4 alone. It's so sad, but better than a DA household. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm not saying that there's only one way to be successful in a family. I just, and I tip my hat to you and other women and men who do it alone. Well, and I just told you, my grandmother did it alone for a lot of years, raising my dad and his brothers and sister. And she did a terrific job. And, married a man who I met him when I came along many years later, who was a funny, hysterical, it wasn't just that he was funny and fun and hysterical. He was good in so many ways, but had a real hard time connecting to, especially the boys in that household. So, was it better that my grandmother remarried? I'm glad that she did, because I got another aunt out of the deal, right? And I got a grandpa out of the deal. But yeah, it's not always perfect, I guess, is what I'm saying. Elaine, her father should have slapped down the wife's jealousy. Gavin, you're wrong here. Taddy was jealous AF and made life difficult, but the responsibility was on Dad. Yeah, I mean, you must know something that I don't know. And boy, is that not only possible, but probable. Donna asks, are you going to be covering the trial? Yeah, I think once this gets to trial, if it does get to trial, I think we've done enough coverage on the channel that warrants that we do cover the trial. Allison, Oregon land. You are fortunate you had that, Gavin. Not everyone does, and you kind of get judgmental at times. I do. I let my biases come out. That's not that comment, I think, is fair. And I was fortunate. Let's see. Moni says, I don't think Maddie told anyone about what was happening. I do feel she at one time told Jenn, if not more. Yeah, well, I think Jenn knew. And I think that, there was a case in my area where I don't want to get too detailed on this, but a grown woman, an adult woman out on her own, living her own life, who had suffered very similar to what Maddie had suffered, full on told the police and brought charges against her abuser. When I read the criminal complaint, which, redacted everything because at the time of her abuse, she was a juvenile. I think it's probably why they redacted that. But I remember thinking, man, how amazing is this woman to finally be able to grow to the point where she could tell someone and she decided that enough was enough, right? And there was another case in my area that I'm aware of where A man was suspected of sexual crimes, and his alibi was well, I don't want to get too. He had an alibi, let's say, but later on, that alibi told the police eventually that that he wasn't, like, the alibi wasn't there, and the reason that she did that is she had been abused, and they had a daughter together, and she was very concerned about her daughter being abused later. So, like, there are cases where, and that man he eventually pleaded guilty and is serving prison right now. So I just think that Maddie could have, had she been given the time, triumphed over this, and it would have been just the most amazing triumph that none of us would have known about, and that would have been beautiful. But she just wasn't given the time. Let's see. Veronica says, Veronica, if I remember correctly, you were my Argentina friend here, right? Gavin, what do you think she will be charged for, and when approximately? She's been free for so long now. Yeah, I think that there will probably be some kind of, what is it called? There probably are going to be conspiracy charges, I would guess. I also think that there would be, man, what is that crime called? Give me a second. Accessory. Yeah. So, like, she could be an accessory before, during, and after the fact. I think that maybe she can be charged with some of the lies that she told, even though she was given that immunity. I think that she can be charged with a lot of things, and I think that the police probably will do that. Man, I hope so. Let's see. On the report for SB, it states offender Stephan, but it stated Jenn as involved. So does that mean she played a part? But if so, why is she free? The report for SB. Why am I blanking on this? Oh, of course, sex. Okay, got it. SB stated Jenn is involved. Yeah, I think that she might have been an accessory or a co-conspirator on that. Yeah, let's see. A couple more things here. Madeline was starting to realize it wasn't normal, said Zach. See journal entry about feeling a certain way when seeing males who look like her perpetrator. Yeah, good comment. Jess says, Gavin, just want to brag about how awesome you're doing, and those mods, they are top tier. They are top tier. Hey, speaking of which, let's go over to the website. I brought this up. Look at how big the community has gotten. We're at 94,545 people that are a member of this community, and we've got another 2,400-ish, something like that, over on the Fish Tank. So yeah, if you're on Facebook, please join us over on the Fish Tank. We like to talk about all things true crime. And then if you haven't subscribed yet, please feel free to do that if you like this kind of content. And thank you, Jess Braun, for bringing that up. I appreciate it. Let's see if there's any couple of lots of great comments here, guys. I'm not going to be able to get to them all, but here's one where you disagree with me. So let me just bring this up. Gavin, I respectfully disagree on your overcoming and recovering ideals. Her trauma would live as long as she did. That's how it is. Yeah, I wouldn't nitpick at what you're saying there. I guess what I'm saying is, yeah, because any trauma stays with you for a lifetime. It doesn't just go away. Of course. I 100% agree with that. But I also believe that Madeline could have, with the amount of time, given time, she could have had a happy life. I guess that's what I'm saying. I think she could have had a happy life. And it would have been hard. It would have been hard, and she definitely would have not lived a life without the memory of what happened to her, for sure. But I still think that she could have had a good life had she been given that time. Thank you for that comment, and thank you for respectfully disagreeing. I deeply appreciate that. Guys, head over to the website. There's always a link down below. You can take a look at Maddie's case page. It's chock full of stuff. Man, I should have taken today and worked a little bit on adding some of the stuff that I have on this case to the case page, but I didn't. I just rested, man. That was selfish of me, but look how much stuff is here. Just look how much stuff is there. Please go there if you want to see all the crime scene photos. There are a couple things that are kind of behind a Patreon wall because I make that a benefit to my patrons. For example, the audio recordings are available only to my patrons, and the files here are available only to the patrons. But that's why I go over them here on YouTube. So please go over there. I saw Autumn reminded you guys, please sign up for the Crime Cod newsletter. That could be something that I could have done today rather than sleep. Man, I am a selfish guy. And then, hey, I've seen several of you guys supporting my mods by buying them a coffee. This is where you do it. Just go to the website, click support, click buy mods a coffee, and that goes directly to them. Okay, with that, guys, tomorrow we are going to be going into the recording of Stephen Young. Stephen Young was is the ex-husband of Jennifer Soto. He has a daughter from a previous relationship. They all live together in that townhouse. And boy, did he need to get out of there quickly. We're going to listen to what he had to say. So please join me tomorrow night, 7:30 p.m. right here. Same bat time, same bat station. And we're going to do that in 2 parts. I'm trying to line up a strangulation expert for Friday, if that's possible. But either way, we're going to have something for you guys on Friday as well. So tomorrow, Thursday, we're going to be going over Steve Young. We'll have something else for you on Friday. We're working our best to have content for you guys every single night. With that, I guess I just will bid you adieu. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. Hope to see you tomorrow. Until then, take care of yourselves. Bye-bye. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below.